At the age of 50, I made a decision that saved me from a financial disaster that was supposed to happen, and one that taught me a brutal truth. Before 50, your wealth comes from effort. After 50, your wealth comes from choices. I've lived 99 years. I've seen too many people lose all the savings from the first half of their lives in the second half. Not because they weren't hardworking, not because they weren't smart, but because at the moment they needed to change, they made the dumbest choices. Today, I want to tell you this. After 50, you will face the three most critical choices of your life. Each choice will determine whether you become richer or poorer. This isn't chicken soup for the soul. This is the lesson I exchanged with my entire life and the distilled essence of my 46 years at Berkshire Hathaway. Let me start with a true story. In the 1970s, I made a mistake I still remember. I saw a perfect investment opportunity. Everything about it was ideal. Great return, controllable risk. But I hesitated. Why? Because I was still investing with the mindset of a young man. I wondered if I should take the risk. I wondered what would happen if I failed. I wondered whether I still had time to start over. In the end, I didn't invest. Later, that project produced astonishing returns. I admitted this mistake in Poor Charlie's Almanac. I said, in the 1970s, I made a mistake. I didn't make an investment that I should have made. Had I not made that mistake, the Munger family's wealth would be double what it is today. Double? Do you know what that means? But what hurt me wasn't the money I didn't make. It was the realization that after 50, you cannot afford these errors. Why? Because you don't have time. If you make a mistake at 25, you have 25 years to recover. If you make a mistake at 50, you may only have 10 golden years left. So after 50, every choice you make must be more cautious than when you were young, but also more decisive. Sounds contradictory? It's not. Because choices after 50 are not made with courage, but with wisdom. Before I talk about the three choices, I must tell you a brutal truth. After 50, your life will go through three irreversible changes. First, time becomes your enemy. When you are young, time is your friend. You can use compounding to build wealth. You can rely on time to correct mistakes. You can depend on time to learn and grow. But after 50, time becomes your enemy. Every year reduces your opportunities. Every day lowers your margin for error. You may think 50 is still young. I tell you, it's already late. From 50 to 70 seems like 20 years. But the years you can truly exert yourself, maybe only 10. After 50, your health, strength, and energy decline. You simply can't afford big losses. Second, you move from growth mode to protection mode. This was the biggest shift for Buffett and me. When young, we chased high returns. We took risks because if we lost, we could start again. But after 50, our entire strategy changed. In 1972, we paid $25 million to buy See's Candy. At that time, the company had $30 million in annual sales and $4 million in profits. By traditional valuation, that price was too expensive, 3 times net assets. Buffett opposed it at first. He was still following Graham's cigar butt approach. Buy the cheap businesses. But I insisted. I told him, Warren, we should pay a fair price for a wonderful business, not buy mediocre businesses just because they're cheap. Why was I so firm? Because I knew that after 50, we no longer had time to waste on mediocre companies. We needed assets that were high quality, stable, and holdable for the long term. The result? See's Candy has generated over $2 billion in pre-tax profit for Berkshire. That's the power of switching from growth to protection, not chasing the highest return, but the most reliable return. Third, your cognition begins to solidify. This is the most dangerous change. After 50, most people become rigid in thinking. They trust their past experience too much. They reject new ideas. They use past success to guide the future. I've seen many people at 50 who were successful, yet in the next decade lost everything they once achieved. Why? Because they thought what worked before would always work. But the world changed. Markets changed. The rules changed. If you still use methods from 20 years ago, you will fail. So after 50, your job is not to prove how capable you are, but to admit how ignorant you are. I was 80 and still learning, still reading, still thinking, because admitting your ignorance is the beginning of wisdom. Now let's talk about the first choice. 1. After 50, you must guard your circle of competence. What is the circle of competence? It is the domain you truly understand. Buffett and I spent our whole lives emphasizing this. You don't need to be an expert in everything. You only need to correctly evaluate a few businesses within your circle. Let me give you a real story. In the late 1990s, during the crazy dot-com bubble, everyone was buying tech stocks. People mocked us, saying we were outdated, saying we didn't understand the new economy. That's true. We didn't buy any. Why? Not because we were conservative, but because we knew exactly where our circle of competence ended. I didn't understand the internet. I couldn't judge which companies would survive. Buffett didn't buy Microsoft even though Gates was his closest friend. Why? Because he couldn't understand it well enough. He once bought 1,000 shares for Gates's birthday as a gesture of friendship, but never as an investment. Then the bubble burst. NASDAQ fell from 5,000 to 1,000. Countless smart people went bankrupt. We didn't lose a single penny. This is the value of guarding your circle of competence. And after 50, this becomes even more important because your ability to learn new things declines. Your energy declines. Your ability to adapt declines. These aren't pessimistic facts, they're real. So the smartest thing you can do after 50 is not to chase what you don't understand, but to become the best in what you already know. I have a practical suggestion. After 50, make 3 lists. 1. What I truly understand. 2. What I think I understand, but actually don't. 3. What I will never touch. Then follow them strictly. My never touch list includes technology I don't understand, industries that require prediction, investments that require constant monitoring, projects with high leverage, markets filled with smarter competitors. This list has saved me many times. Remember, after 50, avoiding failure is more important than chasing success. I have a principle. I only want to know where I will die, so I will never go there. That is reverse thinking. That is guarding your circle. This is the hardest. After 50, your returns won't be high anymore. 10% is great. 15% is excellent. 20% is a miracle. Don't chase doubling your money overnight. That's a young person's fantasy. The goal is simple. 10 years later, you're still standing. 20 years later, you still have money. 30 years later, you're still alive. Now the third choice. 3. Shift from pursuing passive income to actively arranging your life. Many people think the most important thing after 50 is passive income. Wrong. I've seen wealthy seniors, people with property, stocks, pensions. Their finances were fine, but their lives were miserable. Why? They lost purpose. They wake up late, watch TV, scroll their phones, meet old friends. After 2 years, they become depressed. After 5, they get sick. After 10, some die early. Not because of poverty, but because of boredom. So after 50, don't chase financial freedom, chase meaning. Here's how. Step 1. Invest your time. After 50, time is more valuable than money. What to invest in? Reading, 1 hour daily. Thinking, half a day weekly. Learning, 1 new field monthly. Family, real quality time every day. Step 2. Invest in your health. Health after 50 has the highest return of any investment. Walk daily, eat less, sleep early, avoid anger, avoid anxiety. Simple, but most people ignore it. Step 3. Invest in relationships. After 50, more problems cannot be solved with money. Loneliness, anxiety, emptiness. Money can't cure them. Invest in deep family relationships. A few true friends, your contribution to society, no investments that disturb your sleep, no following crowds. These principles save me over and over again. Now let me tell you a secret I rarely share. After 50, what determines your wealth is not the 3 choices. It is whether you dare to admit reality. Many 50-year-olds refuse to admit they are aging. They want to prove they are still young. They still want to take big risks. This mindset destroys them. 50 is not the end, but it is a turning point. You must admit, my time is limited, my strength is declining, my risk tolerance is shrinking. I can't start over. This isn't defeat, it's wisdom. At 80, I wasn't afraid, because I lived clearly, rationally, meaningfully. I had no debt, no regret, no unfinished dreams. That peace didn't come from money. It came from the choices I made.